time to shift gears. This is the ManShift Guide.
Welcome back to the ManShift Guide Podcast. And this week, I'm super stoked. We have a really great story for you. My friend here, he is a radio host. He has his own podcast. He does sports announcing. Basically, as he has told me, he's been in the broadcasting for like the last decade, but this hasn't always been the case. And we're gonna start what motivated him to kind of like do these things. And as you know, we like to tell stories of success here. So this is up there, and I'm super excited. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah. My name is Shawn Pyro, right here in Edmond, Oklahoma.
Edmond, Oklahoma. So you are a radio host. You have your own podcast. As we said, you also are like a sports announcer as well, out there in Oklahoma. But let's start at the beginning. So let's start like, what was it that was the big, I guess the ball drop for you? Like, how did that start for you?
Well, I guess to tell that, I would spin it back to I used to play football.
Okay.
Football has always been a passion. I love football, and I used to play, and I was a defensive tackle, and I was a nose guard. I was playing arena football at the time for the Springfield Wolfpack. The team does not exist anymore, unfortunately, folded up. But I was playing football for them, and I was in my 30s, right? I was still kind of chasing the dream. Unfortunately, one night while I was a single man, I was in my apartment. I believed I was getting robbed. I quasi woke up. I felt this pressure on like this left side of my chest, and I was like, "Holy cow! This dude is on top of me. He's not just raiding my things; like he's on top of me." So I start swinging with everything I can muster. Man, I'm swinging my arms, trying to deck this guy. There's nobody there. And my realization hits that, like, oh, there's something wrong. This pressure's still here. Eyes are wide open. There's no one here. I roll out of the bed. I crawl up to the living room. I'm freaking out, but at the same time, I told this story the other day and I said, I hate saying it this way. The discomfort was so bad. If you've ever watched like Marty Stouffert's Wild Kingdom, back when I was a kid, and that kind of betrays my age, but you would watch and you would see like the animals, out there, and like the lions would like capture the zebras. It was almost like that, where I almost kind of just gave up in the middle of my living room floor. I was just like, I don't know what's wrong. I think I'm going to take a nap. I woke up the next morning, thank God, and I took myself to the hospital. And that's when I found out that I had had a heart attack. Shortly thereafter, I was in the cath lab where I had cardiac ablation surgery. I sit here in front of you with an implant in my chest. I got it back then. Those batteries are dying. I got to get another one here soon, apparently. And that was a life-changing event because obviously, you're not playing football after you've had this surgery. I found out that I had atrial fibrillation. I had AFib, all this other stuff. And I'm like, wow, what a life change. Football stopped. And to anybody out there that's listening to this, if you've ever been an athlete, I don't care if you're a D1 athlete, if you were an NAIA athlete, if you were just a high school athlete, whatever, dude, you play at the rec center and you lose the ability to play, to do that sport, to do that thing, right? There's something almost like being a warrior. If you've ever watched the movie 300, that is a part of you. And when it's gone, especially not by your choice, you didn't leave your cleats at the 50-yard line, it changes you. And I found myself kind of in a dark spot. I worked a normal job, was an office manager for many years, and I felt like I lost my purpose. I started battling with depression, and I was not a very happy person. And then I got lucky because a gentleman by the name of Chris Dodson, who owned and operated the Southern Sports Network, he kind of realized, man, Shawn is struggling. And he reached out to me and he said, hey, do you think you can call a high school football game? You think you could do some color commentary? If you're familiar with Tom Brady and the work that he's doing now, he does color. And when he first started, he was bad. He was pointy. He wasn't great. And I would say that was me too. I was not great. Of course, Chris was a very patient man. And about 3 games into it, things got better and they got better and they got better. And it was awesome. And that is when I started my career in broadcasting. And I did that for years. And there was a transition where I started doing it for CBS Sports. And then I got hooked up with them. And then that led to me being a co-host on a Fox Sports local show. And it went from there. And then I became the on-field host for the Oklahoma City Dodgers on FanDuel Network. And I'm on television holding this mic and I'm getting all these people pumped. And then one day I'm in the dugout with the OKC Dodgers. We're about to do a TV hit. And I was like, man, I feel weird, man. I was like, something is up. And Brady LaDon, she was the manager of talent. She was down there with us and she was staring a hole through me. And she looked at me, grabbed my face. She said, are you okay? And I said, I don't know. She said, you were so pale. And I'm like, I don't know. Well, we only had seconds to the TV hit. I sprint out of the dugout. I get on there. I'm holding the mic. We do the TV hit. We come back and she said, you have to go home. She said, go home. And I'm like, I had my second heart attack in the dugout at the Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark. It was pretty cool though, because I finished all my TV stuff. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty cool. Didn't have any surgery after that, but it was explained to me that I have congestive heart failure and I've lost function in quite a bit of my heart. Not quite a bit. Let's not say that. I think we're at like 80% good functional. There's 4 stages of congestive heart failure, A, B, C, and D. I'm just now crossing into C. And I see the heart failure team at Baptist Hospital, and my doctor recently told me, he said, you are living the best years of your life right now. This is as good as you're ever going to feel again for the rest of your life. He said, you do whatever it is that you want to do and you enjoy it and you love it and you have fun, because the time is going to come where you're going to be on oxygen and you're going to be struggling. So I run 5Ks. I run 2 miles a day every day. I'm kind of a fat guy, but I still get out there and I do it because I know that I owe it to myself. I have a son. There's a lot of people out there who don't have the ability, that have congestive heart failure and have had heart attacks and didn't survive their first one. So I keep these feet moving, and I am an ambassador and the MC every year for the American Heart Association Oklahoma chapter for their events. So very special. I just did a huge photo shoot with them for a gala that they have coming this weekend.
Man, I love the energy. I feel like there's so much there to like unpack. Like you talk about having depression and you talk about like losing your purpose, and the things that drive you, which is kind of like a common theme here on our podcast. And I just want to kind of go back into like when you had like that depression and then you kind of like lost that sense of like your purpose. And then you said that you had someone to kind of like pull you out of that. But like was that really like what got you to get out of the depression? Was just having that something to do again?
1,000%.
Yeah.
3,000%. Yeah, absolutely. I needed purpose. There are some people that they find religion, all these different things. For me, it kept me in the world of sports. I'm a sports writer as well, and I had to turn this corner to realize that there was so much more that I had the ability to be able to give. I recently talked to somebody about this. One of the most humbling moments, and the moment that I knew my feet were where they belonged, is I was in the booth calling a high school football game on like a Friday night, or it could have been a tournament on a Saturday. It doesn't matter. Um, I'm calling this game. It's a senior night, and I am giving everything I have. I'm like, and it's Mason Dunn, and he's got the ball. He's at the 25. He's at the 20. And I'm just putting everything into it. And I realize this kid will never see my face. He will never be able to say thank you to me, but I said to myself, I want this to sound like he's in the Super Bowl because grandma and grandpa are watching this at home. They can't make it, but this is his moment. Mom and dad are hopefully there, but maybe they're not. And this is his moment. And realizing that I could give them something. So often you hear people say that selflessness is being able to give someone something that can't give you anything back. And I found that purpose that with my voice, I've sounded this way since I was 16, with my voice, I could provide something for someone that they couldn't give me anything back, that I didn't want anything from them, but just to make them feel good. And that made me feel great. And I knew then, I was like, this is where I belong. I got to be in front of a mic. I'm talking to you from the studio in my house because, this is such just covenant to me.
I love that. So the mic gives you a purpose. You get to use your voice. What like, and you talk about having like it went from this to this to this. Like, do you feel like playing sports kind of gave you that drive to kind of like keep progressing, or how do you think that like that came to be for you?
I think that's just my personality.
Yeah,
I am never satisfied with anything. I'm always unhappy with things. And that's not to say I'm like a melancholy or bad person. I'm a high energy, always happy person.
sure,
As a kid, I was never told that I could achieve anything, right? I didn't grow up in the best environment. And so nobody ever told me that. When I got old enough, I got out of the house, I was an adult, I was never satisfied because I was always worried that I would end up. I grew up in Chicago, and I was always worried I would end up like a lot of the people that I lived around that were so stagnant and didn't achieve. And so for me, I've always wanted more, never stop. That's why I have a studio in my house like a crazy person.
sure. So it's kind of like this inherent drive for you just to kind of like be the best version of yourself. And even more so now that I think with that diagnosis, like kind of telling you like time is running out and you kind of doing that. Do you think that maybe you could beat the odds when it comes to that? Like, is there like an inherent drive of like the doctor said that this is gonna happen, but I'm gonna prove him wrong kind of deal?
I think the thought that there's a sand timer on my life helps to drive me.
Hmm.
I would love to think that, but my mother lives 10 minutes up the road and she's waiting for a heart transplant. So I would
Sure,
love to say, yes, I think that. But from other sports people, other people, no, I don't think so. I think that if you Google congestive heart failure, there is no cure. It
sure.
kills you eventually. There's no beating it. But I think that even with that though, like I say, I think for a lot of people, I think I have the right personality for it in the sense that for me, it's almost become this game, right? It's the game of like, yeah, I have all these issues, but how much can I get done before I go? How
Right.
much can I make sure that like my legacy is something that people were like, dude, that guy's something else.
Would you say that there's kind of like a freedom in kind of knowing what's going to happen? So like it gives you a little bit of like, well, this is how it's going to end, so I'm just going to go do this. Like, is you know what I'm saying? Like, not saying you're going to go jump off a cliff because
Mhm.
that's not what's going to do it, but like is like I would sense that like some of the fears that some people have like are just kind of like not there.
Can I respond to that question with a question for you?
Sure,
Have you seen the movie Fight Club?
I have.
When you've lost everything, you're free to do anything.
Hmm,
And I have my freedom.
sure.
I'm unplugged from the matrix.
Man. Like I guess that would be kind of like, everybody's like desire to want to feel that way, right? Like I'm sitting here like right now thinking like, man, could I do that? Like I don't know if I could do that. Like it's not so much inherent in my own to be able to just have that drive and to like because like I'm also kind of sitting in a spot where like I'm getting to like halfway point of my life where I'm like okay I gotta have to figure out like what it is I really want versus like all of the things I thought I wanted and then like I'm not gonna be that rock and roll star that you wanted to be when you were 12 or you're not gonna be like that whatever. And it's just kind of like sitting here thinking of like, man, like if I had, you know, this almost like timeline played out that I knew how it was going to play out. Like, could I go out and do those things? So it's very motivating to see someone who is kind of like in that spot and who's out there living his best life. And that's really cool. Um, yeah.
Appreciate that. And let me say, by the way, I'm not going to like die tomorrow or anything. This is
No,
a
no,
cumulative thing.
no.
So, I may be like 75 years old and be on like oxygen and just,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
and be
yeah.
in bad shape. But I'm 45 years old. And when
Sure.
you look at the grand scheme, like how you said, you're halfway through your life.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, well, that's like what, 30 years? Or
Sure.
excuse me, yeah, yeah. That's not a long time.
No,
That
it's
is
not.
that. I'm like, I have a 17-year-old. Like, how much am I going to see? So yeah, it is what it is, though.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I just like to be able to face the world in that way. It's very empowering. And yeah, man. I just kind of like I think like I would have to say that I'm a little stumped. Like I'm really like just kind of like, man, like you're just like oozing with this like charisma and I'm kind of like in awe of it a little bit.
Appreciate that. That's kind.
Yeah. So that's awesome. So it's a little early, but I kind of want to get into like, man, I want to know what's next. Like, I want to know like what are we doing? Like,
Like, what's next for me?
yeah,
I ride this train just kind of the way that it goes. For me, I work a normal job. I have a normal job like everybody else because I have to have health insurance, as you can imagine.
sure.
I can tell you if I'm being very honest, I do voiceovers for the local news stations. I do voiceovers for a lot of different companies from my studio here, which has been amazing. I mean, I have so much anonymity. I do commercials. I do TV commercials. I I mean, a lot of the dreams that I had, I've managed to really kind of fulfill as far as in the broadcasting world. I never wanted to be like a guy that was on the news or, was on like a TV show.
Sure.
This just using my voice for stuff. If anybody listening has ever had a dad that worked like in construction, and their dad's driving and they're like, I built that building. For me, when I'm sitting in the truck or I'm sitting in the car and I'm with my son and the radio's on and a commercial comes on, I go, yeah, that's me, son. That's me right there. Or a TV commercial comes on a news station and I'm like, yeah, that's me. I mean, that's really all I wanted was just, kind of to be able to just say, wow, like I did it. It was never, I never knew how far it would go. I don't know where it goes from here, to be honest with you. I just keep going forward, and I love podcasting. Podcasting has been one of the best outlets in the world. I used to do my show on a radio station here locally, and I do it with my wife, who is massive in WNBA and women's college basketball. She has several sponsors, and it became a thing where I realized we could do this on our own. And when we transitioned into the podcast world, it was amazing. It blew up. The freedom, the things that you can talk about when you don't have like an FM dial overlord that says don't talk about that. And
Mm.
so I'm happy. I don't know how to answer that really. I don't know what's next. It's all been seat of my pants, and I just kind of hold on and just keep riding the ride.
What was the best piece of advice someone has given to you on this journey?
Best piece of advice I've ever been given was a coach that once told me, don't worry about what anybody else thinks.
Mm.
Never worry about what someone else thinks. Do whatever it is that you want to do. I love to ride motorcycles, and as somebody once told me, ride your ride. Even if you're in a group, don't worry about trying to be so fast. Don't worry about trying to stay wheel to wheel with the guy next to you. Ride your ride. Do what's safe. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. That's probably one of the best things in the world because when you're trying, I guess it goes back to Fight Club, right? They talk about people that they want to fit in. They want to be part of like social norms and all these different things. But when you live your life for what it is that you want, uh, you're always happy. You're always happy. And I think we get scared to be a little selfish sometimes, but that's part of having a life that's well lived.
So why do you think the difference is then? Like why do you think people have this inherent need to want to fit in and to do these things? Because like I hear you and I understand that, but I'm also kind of like thinking about my own, like, okay, so why am I not living the way that I want to live or think that I want to live? And I mean, I think I have my own personal reason for that, but like I'm kind of like, what do you think holds people back in that way?
Social norms, societal norms, social media especially. I think we have a blank page that almost exists in most of our lives for what we're supposed to color in for what happiness looks like. And most people, I think, make a carbon copy of the next guy's paper of what happiness looks like. And they're afraid to use the rest of the colors inside of the Crayola box because it's so different. And people are going to point and laugh and say, well, why are you doing that? That looks dumb. Why are you doing it that way? I think that I think that it's not considered cool to buck the system, and because look, at base, there are so many people that laugh at me when I say I have a studio in my house. If there's anybody that can see the background, it's all padded in here. People think this is super corny. Like they're like, why are you doing that? And it does sound corny. It's bizarre, but at the same time, it makes me happy. There's so many things I think as people that who was it? George Carlin. I don't want to cuss because he cussed a lot, but he says that we buy things to impress people who don't care about us so that we can seem cool. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's what we do. And when you stop caring what anybody else thinks, you're just living life.
Yeah, and speaking of this, it kind of feels like you really are living this, right? Like you opened up that kind of boxes or that kind of that box crayon. I'm getting tongue-tied here. Box of crayons because you were giving this, you know, terrible situation at the time. But like, did you ever think that this was gonna be like your goal was to play football, right? Like, did you think you would ever be in like this broadcasting? Like, was that even in the back of your mind as ever being an option for you?
I don't To answer that honestly, when I was in high school, I wanted to be an air traffic controller. So I guess I wanted to broadcast to aircraft. I am a total nerd when it comes to planes. So maybe kind of in that sense. For what I'm doing now, it was never a dream. No, it wasn't part of the dream. It didn't even become a option until I got this voice is the same voice I've had since I was 16, and I got into the drama club in high school and started being in plays. That was the only time my voice was cool. Otherwise, I just sounded like a bizarrely deep voice 16-year-old. So
Sure. And it's just so funny how like the world works that way. Like, like I enjoy professional wrestling. How many
mm,
professional wrestlers say like, "Oh, I never planned on doing this," and look
yeah,
how successful they are. Like it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
sometimes things just kind of like fall into your lap like that, and that's
Harry
just
Boleya is a great one.
yeah.
Yep,
And
yep.
it's just so awesome in that way. So I guess to kind of like wrap that up in a little bow is just to kind of like expect the unexpected or to like, whoa, something just fell over. Cool. Expect the unexpected to like just be open to opportunities because like even though they don't seem like they would be a fit, then if you just try them, that who knows, like maybe it opens up this door of like awesomeness.
I should follow up what you just said. My gosh, you couldn't have said that better, dude.
Yeah.
Opportunity shows itself in the strangest ways, and you have got to be so overwhelmingly, overly just, I don't even have words to describe how aggressive you have to be. And when you see an opportunity, hit it immediately. Even if it's an inopportune time, that's what it's been for me throughout this journey. As opportunities pop up, I am psychotically there. I have no college education. I have no formal training in broadcasting in any way, shape, or form. And I have walked into places that I have absolutely no business, sat at tables and held a mic in front of cameras where I shouldn't be, all because opportunity popped, and I relentlessly pushed my way through the door. And that works for anything and every type of a situation, unless you're a psycho stalker. Do it, do it, do it. Be there. And when it happens, just, oh, be there. That's the other thing. If there's something that you want, make yourself available to it. Be where it's going on. Like, be there. And if it accidentally pops up, run through the door.
Yeah. So let's go into more of like you mentioned about loving podcasting, and I just want to get a little bit into that. Like, what is your podcast about?
So I do a podcast called Prior to the Snap, Pryor to the Snap. Obviously, my last name is Shawn, or excuse me, my last name is Pryor, so that's where it came from. The podcast was originally born as a show for people that want to talk sports. It's quite regional to like Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Kansas, kind of an area. But for people that want to be able to talk sports in general, but people that want to talk casually, I don't do stats and scores and all of that. I love storylines. And so we discuss storylines that are going on in sports that the average Joe, I always say, I want the average Joe to be able to listen to our show and then walk back to work that following like Monday and have a conversation around like the water cooler and sound informed. And then it morphed to the fact that because my wife is so involved in women's sports, that we became this like mecca for women's basketball, for all types of like women's. It's pretty much just women's basketball is really the thing. At one point, we were number 8 on the on Player FM's list of the top 100 podcasts for women's basketball. Like we are just mecca for that, and it's so special. Podcasting has been one of my favorite outlets because again, you can be very honest, you can be yourself, you can show your true persona. I'm very stiff sometimes on radio, on podcasting. Oh, you gonna get this? Oh, you gonna get this? So yeah, it has been one of my truest loves.
That's amazing, man. I did get the cue, so we're gonna wrap this up, and we'll have our last question of the podcast, as always. Who is that person that you admire?
Nobody's ever asked me that question. I didn't know my father, and I can't say I've had a ton of positive male role models in my life when I was growing up. With that said, I've been trying to think of somebody. I'm gonna just say that every other dad that I've ever met has probably been that because every dad that I've ever met that I've talked to about their kids and we've shared that stewardship and that energy, because every conversation is an energy transfer. I learned something. My kid is 17, he's almost an adult, but I will always have to give him stewardship and love and lessons. And guys that are 65 years old that tell me things that are dads, I absorb some of that from them, and I know that makes me a better father. So every dad I've ever met that I've ever talked to has made me a better father and a better human being.
I love that. Yeah, I really, really love that. There's great examples wherever you look as when it comes to fatherhood. I'm kind of like in the same boat. Like, I did have my dad in my life, but I couldn't say that he was like the best example in the world. Nobody's the best example in the world, right? But like, there's all of these bits and pieces from all of these people that you could just pull from, and just like, so much information out there. And I love doing these podcasts, love talking to people because that's the reason why I started this, is to talk to guys like you and to just get that advice out there. And it's been real fun to doing that. So thank you for sharing that. So where
Thanks
can
for
we
having
find
me,
you?
bud.
Yeah, for sure. Where can we find you?
Look on Facebook, of course. There is Shawn Pryor, LASHAUN, PRYOR. Also, go to Facebook and look up Pryor, PRYOR, to the snap. We are on Instagram, but the Instagram is really just reposts of what happens on Facebook because they're connected. As far as listening to the show, feel free to just go to Google. It's the easiest way and type in PRYOR to the snap. We are on every major streaming platform that exists and some that are not like that are obscure. We're translated into Spanish. You can find us everywhere from Apple, TuneIn, iHeart. I could just keep going. We are literally everywhere. Look up LaShawn Pryor Sports, and you'll find areas where my articles have been published. If you want to keep up with my sports writing, I love to write about college football. It is a true passion. Sports writing makes me extraordinarily happy.
Oh,
Oh,
awesome.
one last thing. One last thing. We are in the middle of the Coaches Hour of Power series right now. I take about an hour and I'm interviewing all types of coaches. We're just about to cross in the NFL, where I have several coaches from the NFL that are about to be coming on. They're going to be having a seat with me, and we're going to be discussing coaching, their journeys, where they started, where they're going, what they hope that they've inspired players and coaches to be. It's going to be awesome. We have some college football coaches coming on. We got some great stuff coming.
Awesome, Shawn. Thank you. Energy is fantastic. Um, I wish you the best success that you can have. It sounds like you're already out there having fun, and I think that if you can gauge success, being happy, man, I don't think you can beat that. Like you can't beat being happy. Um, no matter what you're doing, you just gotta find that purpose. And I think that you are a great example of having that purpose in your life. So again, thank you for being on.
Appreciate it, brother. Really appreciate it.
For sure. And in the meantime, this is the ManShift Guide, and we're pushing for those, man. I keep saying I hate being that person, but we are playing the game. So if you enjoyed this, please give us the subscribe. We are on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on all the other good places out there. So share, comment, all that good stuff, and we'll be seeing you on next.